I don't have a problem with pornography.
Spoken like a man who has a problem with pornography.
I mean, I don't get upset when I see sexually exploitive commercials.
Well, those aren't pornography now, are they? Also, it's exploitative, not exploitive.
In fact, those are usually my favorite ones. I mean, I don't know what her ass has to do with my hamburger, but I'm gonna drive through the very next day.
Really? You actually make a conscious decision to eat at a place because they put an ass in their commercial? Holy shit, you are the mindless sheep that every bad political cartoon complains about.
I have a problem with violent movies or images or the word bitch.
Okay, so you won't have a problem if I call you a bitch then.
I don't have a problem with jokes about women. In fact, I freely admit there are times where I sit back with my fellas and kick back, talk about some bitch and how I wish I could hit that, talk openly in public places, unconcerned if your kids laugh.
Really? Out loud, in public, so that everyone can hear you. Wow, you are the worst kind of person. You're fucking yelling about slamming your dick in someone's ass while kids are around? That's not normal behavior. Other people don't do that. The people who do that are instantly looked at as the most annoying people in the room.
I mean, it's just words, just jokes, just dudes talking shit.
Well, talking shit is insulting someone. You're not really insulting someone by saying you want to have sex with them. Just depending on the context, it might be rude.
That you never expect's going to get back. However, I do have a problem with violence and cruelty and rape and abuse.
Glad you made that clear. I might have assumed that you thought those things were good.
And even if we know, it's just me. It's just you.
It is not just me. Don't drag me into this.
It's just a few harmless jokes between me and my dudes that still perpetuates a culture where it's easy to confuse the link between the jokes and the bruise.
No, they're pretty easy to tell apart. The only people who can't seem to tell the difference between joking about a bad thing and the actual bad thing are people like you.
Between her getting choked and what's just jokes between dudes, and if there's a connection between the things I don't have a problem with and the things that I do.
Keyword, if. So are you going to prove to us that one causes the other? No, of course you aren't.
Then perhaps I need to rethink my views on the way we view women.
Who's we? I don't view women the way you're describing, and it seems like you don't either. Unless you actually believe the things that you're saying when you tell these jokes with your friends, in which case you're the bad person, not because you're telling the jokes, but because you actually believe these things.
Now, how many views sexually exploitive images get on YouTube?
Wait, this is about the number of views now? How do you expect to control how many views a YouTube video gets? Are you going to stop people from watching them in large amounts? Like you're fine with the video existing, just don't watch it is all. Or even you can watch it, just as long as a whole bunch of people don't watch it.
My best friends have beautiful children. And if what I have to do to keep their daughters from getting raped or harassed or abused is choose to accept domestic violence.
Domestic violence? Just domestic violence? What about the rape, harassment, or abuse that occurs outside of that? Why have we suddenly switched our focus to just domestic violence?
It's a man's issue too.
Well, you're absolutely right there, my friend. Female on male abuse is about as prevalent as male on female, not to mention domestic abuse that occurs within same-sex couples. It's actually pretty admirable that you talk about that. That is what you're talking about, right? That is what you're talking about, right?
Then I'll do that.
Oh, you're just so fucking proud of yourself, aren't you?
And if their sons grow to be like the men that they see, so it's on me to live like the men I want them to be?
You want them to be slam poets?
Then I will do that too. And when they're of a certain age, I will tell them this story I heard when I was young.
Oh boy, story time, story time, story time!
About this village being terrorized by lions. See, every so often in this village, the villagers would wake to find beds ransacked, bodies torn, and for some odd reason, the bodies were always female.
Might be bears, not lions. You know they can smell menstruation, right?
Panicked, the men of the village started sleeping in shifts to make sure at least one man was always watching.
Well, if they're only just now keeping watch, then how do they already know it's lions?
Despite that, the lions came. Too worried to sleep. Now, the mothers crept to the beds of their babies, and there, watching over them, they learned why the victims were never men.
The victims were never men. The victims were never men. You honestly fucking believe that? You honestly believe that the victims of violence, rape, and abuse are never men? Holy shit.
Because on random nights, for unknown reasons, as the fog crept in and the moon caught in the branches, the boys and men of the village became the very thing the women they loved feared most.
Holy shit, men are fucking werewolves. Also, the men and boys? You're telling me that like 6-year-old boys are going around mutilating women with the strength of a lion?
When I was young, I thought that story was about lions.
Yeah, I don't believe that's an actual story you were told when you were young. I think you just made that up right now.
It's not. See, when we are children, the monsters are under the bed. When we are adults, the monsters have moved. They are inside us. They fight us. They climb in bed beside us.
Every night you come into my room and pin me down. You with your strong arms and pin me down. And I try to fight you. You come inside me.
Charlie, hold on a second. I mean, the first half of that song was kind of cool, but what's with the second half?
It's about the Nightman, like filling me up and I become him. I become the spirit of the Nightman.
But it sounds like a song where a man breaks into your house and rapes you.
And so to stay safe from danger, we raise our girls to believe they must avoid it, and we raise our boys to believe they must become it.
Ah, yes, the age-old saying, in order to fight the rapist, you must become a rapist. I remember my parents taught me that. They sat me down and told me, son, one of these days you're going to be the best rapist the world has ever seen, and you're going to fight all the other rapists in the Rapadome.
And so they do. And then one day, they grow up to discover they are
Tigers! We are tigers! Mighty, mighty tigers.
They are the ones you're watching out for. They are the ones. We ask her, what did you do? When we should ask him, what have you done? But we don't. As if we can't blame him, as if it's her fault for failing to accept that being safe around men, that's not safe to expect. I mean, she got in a cage with a lion. She deserves what she gets.
Okay, first you were saying that we were obsessed with protecting women from violence. Now you're saying that we don't really give a shit. Which one is it?
And as men, we have to reject that mindset or the violence won't end. We have to accept most often it starts in the hands and hearts and minds of men. And we are the lions time and again. And if we aren't the lions, we are on their side. Too often standing proudly in defense of the pride.
Ah, yes, I remember all those times when someone was being raped right in front of me, and I stood there and applauded.
Perhaps afraid that if we stand with women against the lion, we will ourselves be devoured. And so, ironically, to prove we aren't cowards, we become cowards. To prove we aren't weak, we become weak. To prove we are still lions, we become sheep.
So we're not lions? We're sheep instead now? Who's hurting the women then? Is it the sheep? And why are we trying to prove that we're lions? I thought we were fighting the lions. Seriously, dude, your analogies are all over the fucking place.
Unwilling to do the one thing that must be done. Speak.
Fuck!
Good boy.
And our silence chokes as heavy as hands.
No, hands are definitely a lot fucking heavier.
It stings in every black eye. Where men stand, violence lives or dies. And that is why to call this just a women's issue is a lie. We must be involved.
We already are involved. We're getting the shit beat out of us just as much as anyone else is. Not that you seem to know anything about that. You start citing some statistics a moment from now, so clearly you've put some thought into it. You've looked into this a little bit. Yet at no point did you ever think to check how the other gender was faring. As if you just took it for granted that it didn't happen. You just don't care, which is pretty fucking disgusting on your part.
This is a problem that cannot be solved with our silence.
You're right. It probably needs to be solved with counseling. Or just ban sexy commercials. I guess that works too.
If we want to end the violence, we must speak. We must act.
Well, every time we try to act, we end up turning into fucking lions. So what are we supposed to do?
1 in 5 women are raped by men.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Okay, Shoe on Head has her wage gap button. I think it's fine if I have a button of my own, right?
The 1 in 5 statistic is derived from a study measuring not only rape, but other forms of unwanted sexual contact, such as unwanted kissing, from a sample of only 5,500 students in 2 colleges, which even the administrators admit is an incredibly small sample size. It is not exclusively describing rape. It is not representative of the country as a whole. It is not representative of the general populace.
It's a little wordy, but I think it gets its point across. Hopefully Shu doesn't mind me appropriating her culture.
We must own that fact. 640,000 women and girls are trafficked for sex annually. We must own up to that. 3 women are killed each day by men who say they love them. That fact is ours, and ours alone. Domestic violence is ours to own.
No, it is fucking not. The only people who need to own this are the people who commit these acts. The men and women who commit these acts. Trying to blame all of this on one group of people, regardless of whether or not everyone in that group is responsible, is fucking stupid. You are placing the blame on the wrong people.
This is what we must understand. This violence ends where it starts, in the hands and in the hearts and in the minds of men, because we are the lions. Time and again.
Fuck you. Jesus, we're getting fucking genocidal here. Oh, never mind. It was just a setup for a pun. Why is the E written differently? What's so special about the letter E? Is it because it's in both of those words? Letter N is in both of those words. Why isn't that written the same way? Looks like you just gave your logo to a graphic designer and said, hey, go wild. This video annoys me to no end. It is the epitome of virtue signaling and of not actually helping. But because it has the general message of, hey, domestic violence is bad, hey, be nice to women, people won't look at it with any sort of scrutiny and they'll just applaud it for being so brave, so inspiring, so truthful. When it's really just falling back on the same old complaint of, it's just like society, man, and like the media. I mean, for God's sake, he's even talking about violent movies right at the beginning there.
I have a problem with violent movies.
Not even violent towards women, just violent. As if Jack Thompson has been proven wrong enough times already. He even mentions porn.
I don't have a problem with pornography.
Does he think porn is a part of this? Does he not know that women watch porn too? Does he not watch porn? Or I guess he does, since he also admits that he's just as bad as the people he's criticizing. Hell, he's worse. He wants everyone else to change their ways, but he hasn't even changed his own ways. He says he's gonna. He's thinking about it.
Then perhaps I need to rethink my views.
You think if what he says is true and all the shit he's doing is actually causing rape, he'd be a little bit more urgent about it. But no, he'd rather come and preach to us about how sorry we all should be. He thinks that just because he's an asshole, that everyone else is too.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Nightman, sneaky and mean, spider inside my dreams. I think I love you. You make me wanna cry. You make me wanna die. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you, Nightman. Every night you come into my room and pin me down with your strong arms and pin me down, and I try to fight you. You come inside me.
Charlie, hold on a second. I mean, the first half of that song was kind of cool, but what's with the second half?
It's about the Nightman, like, you know, like filling me up and I become him. I become the spirit of the Nightman.
But it sounds like a song where a man breaks into your house and rapes you.
What, dude? Where are you getting that from? All right, no. It's just 2 men sharing the night. It might seem wrong, but it's just right. It's just 2 men sharing each other. It's just 2 men like loving brothers. One on top and one on bottom. One inside and one is out. One is screaming, he's so happy. The other screaming, a passionate shout. It's the Nightman. The feeling's so wrong and right, man. The feeling's so wrong and right, man. I can't fight you, man, when you come inside me and pin me down with your strong hands, and I become the night, the passionate